Welcome back to Steven's Reptiles. Today I'm talking about getting your juvenile or hatchling hognose that you might have recently purchased either to start eating for you or to get back to eating if they did start for however long and then stop. So we're trying to just get them back to eating. To start with, without knowing whatever enclosure you had up, without knowing what enclosure size or decorations or heating or anything you have going on, my first recommendation is to, if it's not working in the setup that you have, go back to the basic setup. And I can put a link to one of these corners up here to the other video I had on just setting up a standard 6-quart Sterilite shoebox container, which is shown right here. And the dimensions on that, for a size reference, it looks like about 13 3/4 by 8 1/4 by 4 1/2 high. Again, this is just a standard 6-quart Sterilite container. First thing you want to make sure is that the container is secure. I do like the clear. This one is pretty clear, but you want to make sure this is a standard 6-quart Sterilite container. And I mention that because most people, this is for people that have purchased a pet, they're new to hognose, and this is trying to help them figure out what's going on. I start mine out in a drawer type. This is a FB5, it's a Freedom Breeder clear tub with the pre-drilled air holes in it. So just for a size reference to show you on there, the base dimensions on here are about 3 1/2 by 16 1/4 by 3 1/2 tall. So this one's it's about the same size on the footprint. It's just different dimensions. I do like the longer version better because it allows it more of a temperature gradient. You can have the hot spot back here at the back, and you just put aspen bedding all the way up here, leaving that spot open so they can get directly on the heat source. I set their hot spot at about 85 degrees on belly heat only, and they are able to see light coming through here now, which helps them with their daylight cycles, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So going back to the standard setup, this one does have aspen bedding set up in here. There's a snake in here I'll show you in a second. She's just hiding underneath here. I would recommend, if your snake has gone off feed completely, or if it's been a long time since you've seen him eat, I would put this on a basic paper towel just so you can supervise anything that's going on. You'll be able to see if the rodent is left in there, or if they're making any stool in there, so you can see if they're operating normally. So that would be my first step. Set them up in the basic care, smaller size. My experience is many years ago when I first started with hognose, I purchased one who started eating for 2 months. I had him in this exact size container, and I moved him up to the next size container, and he stopped eating. He did not eat for 2 months, and then the only thing that worked for me at that time was I put him back into the smaller container here, and the very next day he ate. So you just want to make sure you have their environment set up properly. One other thing to note, depends on where you have your enclosure set up in your house. If you have a high traffic house, small kids or cats or dogs just moving all the time, something always going by, catching their eye, it'll make them nervous, and they may not want to eat for that reason, because they only eat if they feel secure and they're warm enough. Something else that has worked for me on hatchlings is take a deli cup, again with the air holes already in it and a lid. In this size container, it's deep enough you can just sit that deli cup in here, and it prevents them from getting away from the rodent too far. They're stuck there with it, and even if you have to leave it overnight, as long as it's warm enough in there, they may or may not eat that easy and readily. Just want to make sure that if it sits there overnight, take it out first thing in the morning, so that way they're not, if they do decide to eat it, they're not eating one that's already partially decomposing, which could cause them some illness. I have not had that happen. Usually if it's left in the morning, they're not going to eat it anyway because it starts smelling off. Something else to note is the light cycles. If you have them in a cage or a room that is clear, or like if their enclosure is clear and the light is always on, or you have a light on at night, or it never goes on, or it only comes on when somebody flicks on a light, they need to have timed light cycles. The room where I have my Hognose in, it's set on a 12-hour light cycle. So it's got the timer plugged into the wall, and the lighting in there comes on automatically and goes off automatically. So during the night, it is completely dark for them, and that helps them with their cycle. If none of that works, there is another thing you can use. This is a product from Reptiles. I can put their description link, or I can put the link to their website in the description of this video. This is just 1 ounce container of frog juice. I believe that's 1 ounce. And this actually really works, but you don't want them to get stuck on it because they might not go back to eating anything else unless you have this on it. If this is simply a pet and you have 1 or a few or even 10 or so, that's not that big of a deal. But if you have a lot of them, you might not want them to get hooked on this. It's not really cheap, but it does last a long time. You just keep it in your freezer, you thaw it out for about a half an hour or so, room temperature, before you're going to use it. And all you do is, if you have your pinky here, you would just, once it's thawed, put 2 to 3 drops on here. And you can offer it to your snake just like usual, just holding it in front of them. You could leave it in an enclosure, but even in an enclosure this size, I find that if they're off of food, they will just ignore the food. So what I recommend is put it in the deli cup with the frog juice on it and just leave it in there even if it's overnight. It takes them a time or two to get used to it, and I have not force-fed any, but I've had a 100% success rate, with this being the last resort I would go to. And I keep that to a minimum on how often I use it. If they start eating for me using this, after the 3rd time of eating this, I will try them on a straight pinky without any scent. This is called scenting. I would put them on a pinky that's unscented, and hopefully they take it from there. Like I said, these methods here has worked for me 100%. And as always, if you still have comments or questions, please feel free to leave that below this video. Hopefully this video has helped you out. This is what I want to do with this channel mainly, is to help answer questions, and if people do get a snake from somewhere, whether or not you got it from me, I'm happy to help. So just send me any questions you have. Also, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. That motivates me to keep putting videos out here and to know what people are looking for. I can pull this girl out here so you can see her size, just so you can get an idea of what size I'm talking about in this enclosure. So she was hatched earlier this summer, and it's not a huge container for her, but it's small enough to make her feel comfortable. And like I said, she just recently moved up from this size, where she was eating great, to this size, where she's continued to eat. And if I do move her up and she starts eating and then stops for whatever reason, what I would do first is try to move her back down to that size before going straight to the Reptiles. So hopefully this video has helped out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.